Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to the Ordinary Council meeting, 4th of February 2020. And I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however, audio from the entire room is captured. By speaking during question time or at any time during the meeting, you consent to your voice and any comments you make being recorded. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is of course to hold us more accountable and improve the transparency of council's decision making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Could you all stand for the acknowledgement of traditional custodians and recognition of all people?
The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we are now on. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all.
Can I remind you all to turn off your electronic devices or turn them to silent if they're on? Confirmation of minutes, 3.1 Special Council Meeting, SP 112. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Held on the 3rd of December 2019. Councillor Nicholas, Councillor Forsyth. All those in favour? Carried. And can I have a mover and a seconder for the Ordinary Council Meeting held on the 17th of December? Councillor Forsyth, Councillor Nicholas. All those in favour? Carried. Apologies. Councillor Keeble attending to his daughter Astaria, who is ill, unfortunately ill. Get well soon, Astaria. You need to be at school. Are there any other apologies? Obituaries and congratulations from my right.
Happy New Year, everyone. Congratulations on the Australia Day ceremonies and all of that, and the visitors that have come back to the Shire, and just a mention of those who lost their lives during the fires throughout Australia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to congratulate all our firefighters and personnel who were involved in supporting those firefighters in one way or another, whether it be community so great. It was a great honour to have the ADF represented here. Those young men and women were just overwhelmed to be invited into our community and do whatever help they can. We had help from the Metropolitan Fire Brigade, our paid firefighters from across the state, and other agencies from interstate, from overseas, who were all welcomed into these communities and relished the tasks that they were given. But in particular, I'd like to mention those volunteer firefighters who gave up their time, many hours of shifts, night shifts, day shifts, and they some of them are businessmen and farmers, but they were out there to help their community, and that's what volunteerism is all about. And it's not just the firefighters, the SES that supported those as well. So I'd like to congratulate them on behalf of council. Well done.
CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been an extraordinary start to 2020. I'd like to firstly thank our staff for the time they put in at the Instant Control Centre, working round the clock 24/7. Both Mr. Jeremy and Ms. Cook were both there as part of that team. We also had staff which set up the evacuation registration and information centre at Myrtleford. I'd like to give special thanks to Indigo Shire, who supported us as well. They brought staff across to assist our emergency management team, and pay particular thanks to the rural city of Wangaratta, who set up 2 relief centres during that time at the Performing Arts Centre and the Showgrounds, which housed hundreds of our community when they only had a handful of their own community members there. So that was fantastic, and the support from other councils across the state was incredible, and also from the state and federal government. So it's been incredibly a good time to be part of the council, and everyone's been very outcome focused, aiming to get the community back on track.
Yes, especially to our staff. What a great job. I have 2, and one is to congratulate an event that was hastily put together but performed well above expectations, and I'd like to congratulate Janelle Marsden for initiating and orchestrating High Country Comeback, which was held over the weekend in Melbourne. 6,000 participants, $10,000 in door donations, 500,000 in sales revenue for 96 vendors, and I'm well aware that at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon just about everything had gone, and Millward Cheese had to dive for some more products. So that's absolutely fantastic. So what a terrific effort. And the second one I've got is actually a small community group, realistically, which is which I think is an amazing effort for Mount Beauty, which is a Mount Beauty Hospital op shop that supports our health campus hospital and the Kiwa Valley House, which is somewhere I really don't want to go to, but at least I know I'll be well looked after if I am in there. But I am reliably informed that since inception in May 2014, they are at this point in time $500 short of raising $200,000. So I can't imagine, from an op shop, that is an extraordinary effort. And to all those people that are involved with the Mount Beauty Hospital op shop that supports our Alpine Health facilities in Kiwa Valley House, the community owes you a debt of thanks. Anyway, thank you.
I know people have already talked about the incredible dedication and gift from the volunteer and career firefighters, but I just wanted to reiterate not just the firefighters but the SES and other volunteers who supported the management effort, and also friends helping friends, family helping family, support for animal transport from other parts of Victoria and offers of adjustment, and not the least the commitment from the Alpine Shire staff. I just think that, I know it's ghastly, it's an awful emergency, but it certainly brings out the best in our communities.
By the time you get to this end of the queue, everybody's said everything. I'd just like to point out one in particular, though, and that is Vic Sharma at Cafe Chakra. Every firefighter, every CFA, every SES, even the Army, everyone who went in there got a free coffee over that period of time. And I just think that was a very, very big effort, especially seeing he's still running a business. So congratulations, Vic.
First of all, an obituary, and it's to a well-known and well-loved lady up in the Harryfield district, and it was Jenny Raymond, who's, I think, part of the Hoys and the Raymonds. They're just an amazing family from Harryfield that have contributed so much. I bumped into Jan Marie Dogood, former husband, Jock Raymond, and Josh and Jack were at the Wandy pub the other week, and it was all talk about Jenny. They had a big involvement at Mount Hotham with lifts and transport, etc. So goodbye to a lovely lady in Jenny Raymond. And on the other side, I'd just like to concur with my colleagues on the firefighting issue, with all the fire brigades from all the different areas, all the different organisations. And I'd also like to mention for the people that didn't evacuate, and it was mainly men, only because it's kids might have breathing problems, etc. So they cleared out. But it was very comforting for people that were still here to be catching up in groups, in neighbourhood groups, and when there was time to meet downtown, maybe at the pub one night there. But it was just the knowledge that was shared amongst the people that stayed just made it so much easier for people like me and many others to feel more comfortable than they would have. So thank you to everyone.
I've got one final one, and that's actually to the state and the federal governments. They have actually, the CEO and I have had a fair bit to do with our state and our federal counterparts here recently, and they have been quick to help us put in place. We also had a visit from Ken Lay from the Bushfire Recovery Victoria here recently, wanting to know what could be done and how he could help us. We've been busy trying to work out what it is we need going forward, being aware that tourism and the loss of the tourism trade over the summer period has deeply affected some of their businesses in the Alpine Shire, and the flow-on effect of that's actually been to our communities and our residents in our communities, because we all know if there's no one here, a lot of people aren't at work, so they haven't got a lot of money. And people have gone back to school, and hopefully everyone's school uniform fits and they've all got the books that they need to be able to do that, and our business will recover sooner rather than later. Declarations by councillors of a conflict of interest, of which there are none. Question time. We have 2 questions on notice. The first one is from Struan Jones from the Times, Alpine Observer, North East Media, and it reads, where is the council at with introducing green organics bins for curbside collection? According to DWELP, their circular economy policy should be released in the first half of this year, but also say that decisions about green bins are entirely a matter for individual shires. When will council release the results of the green bin survey last year, and is anything stopping council from introducing green curbside bins? Struan Jones. And I'll pass that over to Ms Cook, Director of Corporate, to answer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Struan, for your question. And you are correct. The introduction of curbside, or the non-introduction of curbside bins, is entirely a matter for council to determine. However, it is our expectation that in the circular economy policy, when it is released, it may outline wholesale changes to how we may manage organics going forward, as well as potentially wholesale changes to other recyclable collections, for example, glass. It would be introducing any change to our current curbside collection will require us to undertake a significant amount of work, both from a contract negotiation perspective, to change everyone's services, to change their fees, and to undertake quite a lot of community education and change community behaviour around how they're currently utilising the service. We believe it would be remiss of us to introduce a change or to recommend a change now without understanding what imminent future changes we maybe have to introduce, and doing it in a more holistic way with our community. So we were anticipating that this policy would be released at the end of 2019. Unfortunately, it wasn't undertaken at that time, but we will still be waiting for that policy to be released and then put forward a recommendation for council for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. The second question I have on notice is from Paula Hall, who I notice is here, and I'll read out your question, Paula. If you'd prefer, or would like for council to drop the differential special rate charge to all commercial properties. We are all doing it very tough, and as a gesture of more than goodwill, we need you to please more than consider dropping this rate until we recover from the bushfire and the effect of the loss of tourists. As the government will be pouring money into the shires affected for tourism, you will have more than enough to use towards tourism. I can tell you this, we have been in discussion with the government about this topic, and when we know more, we will inform the general public. And thank you for your question. Hopefully that answers your question for the time being. If you'd like to stand up and push the microphone button.
Okay, I'm Paula Hall. Thanks for hearing me. I had a client today who came in with a problem that she said that she has. She's a caravan park owner, has only been one for a very short time. and she's been in touch with her insurance company. All of the people that they had booked in, of course, did not come. They have rebooked for next year. But those same people would have rebooked for next year, and that caravan park owner would have had the money from the bookings for this year, and then would have had the money for that. But the insurance company is saying, oh, but since you've rebooked, we're not going to help you. So her question is, and mine then coming is to say, what can the Alpine Shire Council do to help these people and to help them now?
We are working on that problem, as previously stated, with the state government, and we know more, we will get back to you. We're aware that all the community, if you're in the tourism industry, is struggling. It is not something that has escaped us, but Charlie and I have been discussing widely with federal and state government the effects. We acknowledge that up to probably surpassing $90 million has disappeared, but it's even down. Not having the tourism means that people you wouldn't expect to be suffering or businesses be suffering are suffering. I know that, you know, without employment, our communities, we don't get the spend in our communities, and hence people go without things, and that may be going without a haircut for argument's sake, or you might, or many other things in the community. So we are aware of it. We are engaging with government to see what fixes are out there, and we hopefully will be able to get back to the community with some good news shortly.
We had a presentation today about the Bushfire Recovery Victoria setting up a hub in the Alpine Shire, and there'll be people at that place, at that hub, on a rostered basis to be able to help people with things like their insurance issues. So that's a state government initiative.
Are there any questions from the floor? Ray. And before you start, Ray, we have some rules around question time. I am not going to take any questions about the past. I'm not going to take any questions that predate my being mayor in this session. I'm not going to take any questions previously about the previous mayor, and I'm not going to take any questions about the CEO previous to me becoming the mayor this time. What I will do, though, is, because we do... But I will not take any questions about the CEO prior to me becoming mayor. Now, Ray, I will tell you what the rules of engagement are.
You're telling me, that's fine.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, I know.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I've heard you.
So we are... You can either listen to me, or you can sit back
Mr.
down
Roper,
and go outside.
Pierre Roper. I'm listening.
Turn your microphone off and listen.
Oh, you want it turned off?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, Ray, I'm happy to take questions from you around issues in the Shire that you think are derelict, or not working, or not in control, and we will get back to you with an officer response at the next meeting. So Dorothy Dix's about things in the past are not on the order. So we do appreciate, Ray, let me finish and then you can have a go. But I will not take long rambling questions that lead nowhere about things in the past. I will take questions about things that have happened currently, or that you find that are derelict currently in the community, and we will get back to you within a month with an officer's report on what actually goes on, because we actually value somebody looking out for things that might be broken in our community. So off you go.
I'm more concerned about the minutes of the meetings, Mr. Mayor. When you were mayor last time, I spoke.
Excuse me, Ray. We are not talking about anything from the past.
I'm talking about you, Mr. Mayor, when you were mayor. You were uncooperative and unproductive. Straight out the front of this office one day.
I've already warned you, Ray. That's enough. Sit down.
Oh, this is really good. This is straight out dictatorship, Mr. Mayor.
Correct. I offered you a way forward, Ray, and you straight away...
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm talking about... Well, we'll talk about the minutes of the meeting, okay? Minutes of the meetings. Every council Everybody is entitled to have a copy of the minutes, the previous minutes of the meetings of a council meeting if you ask. I asked, and I was getting copies of the minutes of the meetings every month at that front office there.
Okay, Ray,
I
we
would
now...
like... No,
excuse
Mr
me,
Mayor, hang on, I'm talking, please. Don't interrupt
Can I turn
me.
this whole thing off?
I'm talking.
How do I turn it off?
I would like a
Turn
copy
it
of the
off.
minutes of this meeting
Turn the whole thing off.
for next month. I'm entitled to it. This is present time, here and now. Minutes of meetings.
That's the end of question time.
Well, do I get a copy of the minutes of the meetings? I'm asking. You're allowed to.
We now have the... if you want to see the meeting, you look at it on live stream.
No, you're allowed copies, direct hard copies. That's what I'm asking for. I've asked for it and I've had it many a time before, until you were mayor last time. Look into it, you'll find I'm right.
Ray, you can't have the minutes until they're adopted anyway.
No, you've got to adopt them, but I would like to have a copy so I know exactly what you're adopting. Because no one has a copy of the minutes, the question time or anything else, that's what I'm talking about.
We're not putting question time in the minutes.
They're in the previous written minutes all the time, and that's what I'm talking about, and I'm entitled to them. Now, you've wasted enough time mucking around. Look into it and you'll find I'm entitled to it.
Fix the speakers.
Before it goes next month.
Are there any further questions?
It's a very simple question given what we've just been through, but it was lovely to see the young guy being presented with his award tonight. And I just wondered if that's a regular thing, because your own citizen of the Shire for this year wasn't available for his presentation and he wasn't here tonight. I just wonder if in general people are not available, you do invite them to come to a council meeting for their awards. That's all.
The council, exactly, the person you're talking about, Nick, yep, from Mount Beauty, before he was alerted to his winning of the award, had already made arrangements to go on holiday. The boy we had here this evening, Liam, he requested that we have his presentation and we facilitated that. So if Nick would like us to present him in this format, that can be arranged also. But
Now I wouldn't suggest it, but in future it could be done, is what you're saying.
oh, yes, but anything can be done. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's already been accepted by somebody else on his behalf. Further questions? You've already had your time this evening, Ray, and you've ruined your chance this time. No, my choice. Bye. Presentation of reports by officers. Chief Executive Charlie Bird, nil. Director of Assets, Will Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report relates to the award of a contract for pavement construction and sealing of local roads within the Alpine Shire. The roads it refers to: Grange Road in Porpunca, Merriang South Road in Merriang, Eggleston's Road in Buckland and Mystic Lane in Bright. Council frequently receives requests to seal unsealed roads. Largely they're complaints about dust from adjacent residents and occasionally around safety concerns. So we have a policy, the Sealing of Gravel Roads policy, which has a threshold limit for traffic volume, and we apply that and look at whether we do a traffic count and we assess whether the traffic on that road exceeds that limit. If it exceeds the limit, as these roads do, we then consider it for future sealing. It is a long time since council's sealed an unsealed road, and the reason we're recommending sealing of the road at this point is because we've got a grant funding opportunity. We received funding under the Fixing Country Roads programme, $210,000 towards the reconstruction and upgrading of these local roads. So we've taken the opportunity through the grant funding to allow us to seal these roads, which were the highest on our list, our priority list, in terms of the traffic counts that we saw.
So moved.
So the recommendation is?
The recommendation is that council awards Contract 1909-001 to Stadelman Enterprises for the lump sum price of $290,111.47 plus GST.
Moved by Councillor Janus, seconded by Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Janus?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Jeremy, for your report. And you're right, we haven't done road sealing for many years. We've fixed them up and freshened them up and that, but actual new ones has been some time. And I think the 4 roads that we have are genuinely needing of that treatment, and particularly that one at Mariang South where we have a huge dust problem. The vineyards are affected, local residents are affected there. The heavy vehicle traffic movement there warrants that, and also the extended seal on Mystic Lane, which is a very, very popular road, even though it's not particularly on our assets per se. But with the amount of traffic that goes up there with the tourists and the cyclists, it will assist in noise and dust reduction for those residents in that bowl area there. So I have no problem with moving this motion.
Councillor Nicholas?
I concur with Councillor Janus, but I just wanted to add that the assessment of the tenderers and the assessment of whether the roads needed to be made or not are very thorough as per usual standard of Alpine Shire staff. And thank you.
Any further comment? If not, all to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. 8.2.2, Mr Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this report relates to an opportunity to seek state government funding through Sport and Rec Victoria's Local Sports Infrastructure Fund. We're proposing a grant application covering 3 projects, and I'll talk you briefly through what those projects are. So the first one, we've got a project which is in the planning stages, which is the Bright to Harriettville Shared Trail, which is the Great Valley Trail. We've already secured $1.3 million of federal government funding for this project, and through the Sport and Rec Victoria opportunity, we have the opportunity to secure a further $800,000 of funding, which would reduce our contribution to $500,000. This is a good opportunity because we're already well progressed with the planning, so we have the majority of the documentation that we would need to support this funding application. So that's number one. Number 2 is construction of the remaining leg of the Pebble Beach path extension. So this year we're delivering on behalf of the community. So the community was successful with the Pick My Project funding application to do the first leg of the extension. The proposal in this recommendation is that we apply for funding to deliver the remaining leg, which would complete the footpath back to Dams Road in Mount Beauty. So that would be a council commitment of no more than $175,000. The third recommendation is a rather more complex one. So this is essentially a planning project, which we've titled Alpine Active Sport and Recreation Plan. So we've got, as you're aware, a number of large questions around our sport and rec facilities that have been bubbling up over recent months. I'll list a few here. So ageing outdoor pools in Myrtleford and Mount Beauty. We've got very strong community support for the development of a second oval and an athletics track at Pioneer Park in Bright, as well as a competing demand for a 50-metre pool at Pioneer Park in Bright. We've got cricket facilities at Memorial Oval in Myrtleford which are inadequate, and we've got a proposal which is related to this to establish a second oval at McNamara Reserve. We've got a desire from the Myrtleford Savoy Soccer Club to upgrade their soccer pavilion. We've got soccer and female change facilities in Mount Beauty Rec Reserve which are acknowledged to be inadequate, and there is growing community support for a splash park and bike tracks in Myrtleford. So across the Shire we've got a very large number of potentially large sporting infrastructure projects. And what we want to do is to do a Shire-wide assessment of what the current demand is versus what the current provision of sports facilities is, to enable us to put a plan in place into future years to deliver those projects and to allow us to access external grant funding for those projects.
Councillor Nicholas and Councillor Forsyth. Councillor Nicholas.
I'm just going to talk to the last item on the application because the other two are fairly practical on the ground. But I think even though having another study is another study, it's fundamental that we have a really good think about what's needed into the future before we start putting more things on the ground. And I think the opportunity to look Shire-wide and then have a really good background document from which to put forward applications is invaluable.
Councillor Forsyth.
I'd also speak to the third point there, pardon me, and that is that this plan, I hope, will look at what we currently have, how it's utilised, and what we possibly need, projecting population growths and/or the changes in demographics. We might even end up with an outdoor scooter thing for oldies or something. I don't know. My question, however, is the 30,000 enough? I believe 30,000 is the max of the grant that you're applying for. Is that correct? Will that be enough to get a really good active sport and recreation plan, an oversight plan done?
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. So 30,000 is the maximum that we can apply for under the planning stream. So that in our application will be matched by $30,000 of council's funds, bringing us to $60,000.
Thank you.
That figure has been established through discussions with Sport and Rec Victoria. So they're in contact with a number of shires who've run a similar Shire-wide strategy, and that's their recommendation. So we've essentially leveraged the maximum we can for the grant funding. That doesn't mean that as we head into budget time next year and we look at the detail of what's in here, that we could request more from council for council to consider if we saw that the scope of this was potentially larger from the 60. But at this stage, we're not in a position to leverage more out of state government funding than the 30.
I think it's a good start, and I believe that if we've got a document like this at the end of it, then it augurs well for council in the future. Yes.
Any further comments? All those in favour? Carried. Ms Cook, you haven't got anything this evening? Assembly of Councillors. Can I have a mover and a seconder for Councillor Nicholas, Councillor Janus? All those in favour? Carried. General business from my left, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Pierre. Just like to go back to Harrietville on General Business Australia Day. Great, and Australia Day in Bright as well, because I attended with Kitty to both of those events, and two good events. Myrtleford was up there longer, and I was listening to a few people. Johnny Backham came up to me, and they're great people up there at Harrietville. They've looked after their own patch for so many years that I've seen when I've been in council, and they've done a bloody good job at it all those years as well. And all Johnny asked me was that the bridge, and I know that I've already done a few inquiries, that it's not fully our problem to patch up the bridge there near the general area up there at Harrietville, but I told Johnny I'd come down here and tell them about it anyway. And another good young bloke up there, and we've got to have these to take over from these older blokes, Johnny Backhams and Carl Texlers and the likes up there. With a young father with young kids at the primary school, he's pushing and has been for a long time for the flashing lights on the pedestrian crossing. And you know, when you think of the fogs they get up there in the winter days, and you know, the danger to the kids, whether they can't see the signs in the day on a foggy day or it's raining, and another knockback because it's Vic Roads' responsibility somehow. I just wish there was something that we could work out and make everyone happy.
Mr Jeremy, can you add that to our list of concerns next time we meet Vic Roads, please?
Gee,
I will
thanks,
do,
Mayor.
Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Forsyth? Ms Cook, can you just check if there is a copy of the minutes down there, please? And the reason Ray can't pick them up currently from the front desk is because he's banned from the council, entering the council chambers, because he behaves in a manner that threatens our staff, so he is not allowed into the council chambers at the reception. Can you confirm that that's a copy of the minutes, please, Ms Cook, from the past meeting? No, well, we have failed because we haven't got a copy of the minutes here, and we will have that rectified for the next meeting. So I apologise to Mr Dyer if he was looking for a copy of the minutes because they weren't here. Councillor Janus.
No general business, sir. Mr Mayor.
Councillor Knapstein.
I think there's a whole lot that's going to be rolling out from the fires, and we're only at February the 4th, so we're not done with them yet. But watch this space because there will be more. Mental health will be looked at, well-being of the community, all of that. And I'd like to apologise for whatever fool verbally attacked one of the Red Cross volunteers at the relief centre at the Wangaratta Showgrounds. She'd done a really hard and long job, and somebody who'd come to be helped then said, "Oh, you must be making a lot of money out of that," and she had to remind them that they were volunteers. Don't forget the time the volunteers put in. Don't abuse them. Thank you.
Motions for which notice is previously given, we haven't any of those. Reception and reading of petitions, we haven't any. It's currently, but we have documents for sealing. Councillor Janus. Councillor Pearce. All those in favour? Yes. Carried. And that brings us to the end of our meeting as we have a confidential item to discuss. The following item has been deemed by the Chief Executive Officer to be suitable for consideration in closed session. The recommendation in accordance with the provision of Section 89(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 1989, the meeting to be closed to members of the public for consideration of personal matters as a confidential item. So there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at, is it 7? Well, just let's be right. Okay, so let's have a. Okay, so let's actually dot the i's and cross the t's here. Can I have a mover for that recommendation for the confidential item, please? Councillor Nicholas, Councillor Janus, all those in favour? Righto. So I now hear that the 7:38 time off. This shouldn't take us too long to transact. If you want, you can wait if you'd like to. And can you turn off the?